What's up, guys? 1-0 yesterday. Maybe took a little bit of luck, although Imanaga did have a good start for the Cubs yesterday. Fott also had a good start. I was thinking about maybe making that one an under play, which obviously would have hit because it was a 2-1 final, but Cubs are actually down 1-0, I think, into the ninth inning maybe, and they tied it and then won in extra innings, but Arizona did only have 2 hits in the entire game. Cubs had more than that, although that included extra innings. But part of the handicap was that Arizona's bullpen was more used than the Cubs was. The Cubs bullpen was. So it came into play. We got it. Move on to today. I got 2 plays today. I'm gonna try to not belabor this, although I always say that and then I do. One side, one total. First side is going to be the Detroit Tigers. I just think that this is a starting pitching mismatch, and I don't see enough of a reason to take the bullpens out of the equation, even though if you look at the market, the first 5-inning line on Detroit is higher than the full game because the odds makers know. They know that. Let me adjust this here. Oh, my God. The odds makers know that the starting pitching matchup is a huge factor in this game, more so than the full game. But you can get a cheaper line on the full game, and I still think it makes sense to do it. Cleveland has used their bullpen a little bit more. They lost 2-1 yesterday. Really good performance from Michael King against them yesterday in Cleveland. Their starter, Lively, as probably was expected, didn't go that deep into the game. I was thinking about playing San Diego yesterday. Unfortunately, I should have talked about it as a lean. I should have talked about the Phillies as a lean yesterday, but whatever. Trying to make these videos a little bit quicker, although at the cost of throwing some additional information out there. Cleveland used 4 of their relief pitchers yesterday in that game, so I think their bullpen is a little bit more used than Detroit's is. Detroit also lost. They were trying to sweep the Toronto Blue Jays yesterday and wound up not being able to do so. I tried to make the comeback and fell a little bit short against actually, I think they tied it. Actually, I think they took the lead, actually. What am I saying? And then Toronto still was able to take the lead back and then hold on to the lead to win. Detroit had one of their young guys pitching yesterday, Montero, but they only used 3 relief pitchers yesterday, not really their better relievers either. So I think the bullpen situation is not a huge advantage one way or the other, but you could even argue that maybe it's a slight advantage to Detroit based on which relievers were used yesterday. Even though I think Cleveland may have the somewhat better bullpen overall, I don't think either team has that good of a bullpen. Now, Detroit gets to leave Toronto, go to Cleveland, so they are traveling, and Cleveland is not. So that is one factor here. Cleveland does not have to travel, but Detroit just traveling from Toronto, I don't think it's that big a deal. And I think maybe after losing that game, it might help them to just get out of there, whereas Cleveland is just kind of sitting there mired in this losing streak at home. And it's more helpful if you go on the road than if you just sit there and listen to everybody talking about how bad you are, even though, yeah, that could motivate you. But then, of course, the starting pitching matchup, like I said, is a huge factor in this game. I think this is a really big pitching mismatch. Tariq Skubal is pitching for Detroit. He is obviously their ace. Very excellent young pitcher. The only drawback here, although I said it with Imanaga yesterday, is that Skubal did pitch in the All-Star game, but so did Imanaga, and he came out and pitched well again. I don't think Skubal is going to not be focused coming into a game against Cleveland. And this is another thing about this game. Detroit could be a little bit extra motivated too, because of course Cleveland has the way better record right now than Detroit does. And we're having to lay a favorite price on Detroit. So the odds makers are telling you something with that too. Like, how is Cleveland, the team with the better record, getting an underdog price at home? Well, obviously it's because of the starting pitching matchup. Skubal did pitch in the All-Star game, but that was 6 days ago, so he's almost on regular rest after that at this point. So if anything, that actually might help him, where that'll put him on almost the right amount of rest for a starting pitcher coming into this game, even though, of course, he only threw 10 pitches in the All-Star game. But still, I think that might help him like get back into his rhythm. They gave him a couple of days off to get back into that starting pitching rhythm, and they basically made it so that the All-Star game was kind of like an outing in his actual schedule almost. So I think that could actually help him. And then, of course, I mean, what is there to not like about what he's done this season? A 2.41 ERA, 0.88 whip, 140 strikeouts and 21 walks. This is dominant numbers here, man. Ridiculous strikeout walk ratio. That's in 116 innings, so ridiculous strikeout rate. Only 81 hits allowed. He's only allowed 10 home runs, too. He's got some of the best stuff. I mean, this is why he was an all-star, obviously. He's one of the better pitchers in Major League Baseball, man. He is good. And against Cleveland's hitters, even though Cleveland, the one big advantage Cleveland has here, just statistically, is that their offense is, of course, better than Detroit's, but Skubal can counter that. Cleveland has seen him, although they haven't seen him as much as you would think with him being in this division, but we have a 35 at-bat sample size to work with, and Cleveland hasn't done well against them. They're 8 for 35 off him lifetime with a double, a triple, no RBIs. And no home runs, of course. 8 strikeouts, 2 walks, 229 batting average, 613 OPS. So Skubal has held their numbers in check quite well. And then on the other side, Carlos Carrasco is pitching for Cleveland. He's a much older dude. He's 10 years older than Skubal is. He's 37. He's on the back end of his career, clearly. He's kind of a journeyman pitcher, although he was actually on Cleveland for much of his career, and he had some more decent numbers kind of early in his career with Cleveland. Still, I wouldn't say he was ever really that great. I had a few like decent seasons around like 20. Actually, he was pretty good in like 2014, 2015, 2016 with Cleveland, but he's much, much older now. He was on the Mets for a couple of years. Now he came back. So I guess he's not a journeyman because he's only been on 2 teams, but he's weathered, let's say. He's been around for a long time, and his stats have not been really great this year. 5.02 ERA, 1.36 whip, 68 strikeouts, 26 walks, and 86 innings pitched, 91 hits allowed. So that also kind of tells you that Skubal is going deeper into games than Carrasco is. Carrasco's had several games this season, really, where he hasn't even gone 5 innings. So Skubal has the better stuff and goes deeper into games. Carrasco's strikeout rate not high. He's never really been a strikeout guy. Strikeout walk ratio because of that isn't really that good either. I mean, his walk number really isn't that great either. And he's allowing more than 1 hit per inning. Just not really great stats out of Skubal. Skubal has really good stats. Out of Carrasco, I mean, it looks like he's done okay in these recent starts where he actually hasn't allowed more than 3 earned runs going back to a game against Toronto on June 15th. And he did face Toronto and Baltimore. Toronto again and Baltimore in a couple of those starts where he didn't do that badly. But then he faced the White Sox, San Francisco, Tampa Bay, not potent offenses really. And he kind of did mediocre in those starts, I would say, even though his strikeout walk numbers in those starts have actually been pretty good. Still not going deep into those games. I still don't really trust him. And he's on extra rest now because of the All-Star break. So I don't know if that's actually going to help him or if that's going to take him out of his rhythm. So that's another thing where he hasn't pitched for 10 days. So when you're a starting pitcher and you like to pitch like on schedule every 5 days or whatever, where Skubal, because he pitched in the All-Star game, kind of has that going for him, whereas Carrasco does not. So that might actually not be a benefit to Carrasco either. And then looking at his stats against Detroit's hitters, of course, they've seen him a bunch because he has been in their division. Actually, they haven't seen him that much. What am I saying? I thought he had a big sample size against them. He does not, but I still think he's the worst pitcher than Skubal, obviously. And his stats against Detroit aren't very good. We only actually have an 18 at-bat sample size to work with, which is kind of weird. I guess because Carrasco just came back to Cleveland more recently, and these new Detroit hitters haven't really seen him because we're only looking at 5 for 18 with 1 extra base hit, which is a home run from Javier Baez. That's the only RBI, 5-1 strikeout walk ratio. He's got a 278 batting average against Detroit's hitters and a 760 OPS. So small sample size. Detroit's hitters have hit him okay, but not as crazy a sample size as I was thinking, but still, Skubal obviously has the better numbers against Cleveland and overall. And actually, neither of these pitchers have been faced by these opposing lineups this year, I think that is the case. So another interesting tidbit there, but that's still going to be the play. Looking at the market, because I forgot to mention that first, Detroit's actually up from minus 105 to minus 122. The public still kind of knows what's up with Skubal. They're not fooled by that at this point. They're coming in at the tune of 73% of the tickets, but 89% of the cash is also on Detroit. So it seems like public and some of the professional money are in agreement on this, with more of the cash and the tickets in the line, I think, legitimately moving up on Detroit in this one. And maybe some of the public is being held in check, like I said, because Cleveland does have the better record. So that's going to be a play. Money line Detroit, minus 120, I think, is the best you can get now on that one. But that will be the play. And then the other one I said is going to be a total, even though it does look like there are stronger market indicators on this one, which is Arizona, Kansas City. There are stronger market indicators on the Arizona side, but because of the bullpen usage, I don't love that as much as I like the under in this one. So I'm taking the under in this one, even though we do see Kansas City down from minus 155 to minus 149 on the money line, with 76% of the tickets on Kansas City. Public kind of coming in on the team with the better record in Kansas City and playing the pitcher that they know is a proven good starter in Cole Reagans, but they don't know who Yilber Diaz is. And he's a guy who I've talked about and I've played. I think I definitely played on him in his previous game, and I think I was going to be on his first game, but then the starting pitching matchup changed or something, so it wound up being a pushed play and not playing that game, something like that, I think. But I've mentioned Diaz in both of his games. 85% of the cash is on Arizona here. Arizona does have the better offense at the very least, but I don't want to take my chances with Arizona's bullpen either. So what I'm doing here, and both starting pitchers are really good, obviously. So obviously I'm taking the under here, even though the market has some indicators that look to be against the under, as it looks like it was 8.5 juice to the under at minus 120, and now it's 8.5 juice to the under minus 118. So maybe a slight move there. But looking at the market percentages, we see 75% of the tickets on the over and 82% of the cash on the over, which is weird. So the over is public. I mean, the public is only going to come in on an over when they see, oh, Arizona, we know they can hit. They won the National League last year. Kansas City, they have a good record, so they must be able to hit too, although I don't think Kansas City's offense is really that good. So the public, I obviously am saying I think they're not correct in this one. Although we do see more of the cash although we have seen a slight move actually away from the under as well, and a little bit more of the cash than the tickets on the under, but I don't agree with it. And we might see this market turn around a little bit. Right now, you can get under 8.5 at minus 112 right now. And it's possible that's the best you're going to be able to get on this. I don't know. I don't know where the line is actually going to go here. We'll see what happens here. But I'm fine with that. It's almost playing under 8.5 at minus 110. And let's look at what we got yesterday. Well, like I said, Arizona did use some of their bullpen yesterday in that extra inning game against the Cubs, although not as much. But they did use some of their other guys the previous day, but some of those other guys are some of their better relievers, and they should be available again for this game today. Yesterday, they did use 4 of their relievers, although a couple of them aren't really their better relievers, I would say. So they're actually the Diamondbacks' best relievers, I think, are probably available in this game because they used them the day before that. So I don't think that's going to take me off of the under. And plus, on the other side, Kansas City didn't use any of their bullpen yesterday because Seth Lugo threw a complete game win against the Chicago White Sox, and he continues his surprisingly good season, although it was against the really bad White Sox offense. But that saved Kansas City's entire bullpen. So the bullpen situation for Kansas City is very good coming into this game. They should basically have everybody available. Arizona has some of their best relievers available. And of course, as I say with the under, it takes 2 kind of to put this over. It takes 2 to tango over the total. That's one of the worst puns I've ever made. Deal with it. But it does. Both offenses are going to have to show up for this one. So Arizona being the better of the 2 offenses and having to deal with a good Kansas City starter and fully available Kansas City bullpen, fully loaded Kansas City bullpen. Should help in this one, I would think. And, of course, the starting pitching matchup. What else is there to say about this? Yilber Diaz pitching for Arizona. He's a guy who I mentioned a couple of times where it seems like his pitches besides his fastball might not necessarily be that good. He's got a really good fastball, I think. But other than that, his other pitches seem like they need a little bit of development. But he hasn't been bad so far coming into the majors. He's faced 2 pretty difficult offenses and done well and only give up 1 earned run in each of them in 6-inning performances, going over 80 pitches in both of them. So Arizona has not hesitated to throw him right into the fire and give him a lot of pitches, and he's done pretty well considering those circumstances as well. Those strikeout numbers lower than what you would want because his strikeout number wasn't good in the Toronto game. It was pretty good in the Atlanta game. But what else can you take away from that, really? He's gone 12 innings so far. He's only allowed 8 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 home run as well in there, and a 7-3 strikeout walk ratio. It was a 2-2 strikeout walk ratio in the Toronto game. So you'd like to see that turn around a little bit and maybe a little bit fewer walks and him to get his strikeout numbers up. But still, he's got good numbers so far in those 2 starts, a 1.5 ERA and 0.92 whip, man. And of course, like I said, the public probably just kind of coming in on the over because they have no idea who Diaz is. Maybe they just don't care, don't take anything away from 2 starts. But when you have a young guy who's being thrown into the rotation like this and he's responded pretty well and done pretty well so far against some pretty tough offenses, and he's facing another offense here who hasn't seen him before, I always say the guy who's got good stuff tends to have a little bit of an advantage early on when he's facing hitters who haven't seen him before. That is the case here with the Kansas City Royals. So I like the Diaz side of it. And then on the other side of it, Cole Ragans, man, what else is there to say? He did, unfortunately, also pitch in the All-Star game. Again, just like with, who did I mention? Schoolball. They both pitched in the All-Star game for the American League, of course. Each of them only threw 10 pitches. But each of them, their manager kind of made that All-Star game be like a start in their rotation and then push their start back. So they each are on the same schedule. So they each got basically 3 days off, then threw 1 inning in the All-Star game. And now they've had like the regular amount of rest coming into this game, the regular amount, 5 days off basically for both Ragans and Scooble on the other side. So I think that's good. It gets that pitcher into their rhythm. They're used to pitching, those certain days. So they kind of maintain their schedule. So I like that about Ragans as well. And of course, I like his stats this season. There's a reason why he was on the All-Star team, just like with Scooble. Ragans, 3.16 ERA, 1.14 whip. His stats really good, really similar to Schoolball's actually, with 141 strikeouts and a few more walks than Schoolball with 38, but that's still a really good strikeout walk ratio, 116 and 2/3 innings pitched, only 95 hits allowed, so a really high strikeout rate, nice strikeout walk ratio. Number of hits is way down as well. Not much to not like about Ragans. He's been really good. And of course, because he pitches in the American League, Arizona has very little of a sample size against him. They only have 3 at-bats against him. Only 3 of their hitters have ever faced him before. And they've never reached base against him. They're 0 for 3 off him with no other stats. A 0 batting average and 0 OPS, man. So it's almost like you're getting both starters coming in essentially facing hitters who have basically never faced them before. And Arizona's few hitters who have faced Ragans before never reached base against them. So I like all that. So that's going to be an under. And that's it, man. Those are the 2 plays today. Detroit Tigers -120 on the money line, and Arizona, Kansas City under 8.5, -112. Let's get it done. Peace.